Thank you so much, Gautam. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here and moderating such brilliant folks on this panel. So thank you, Madhurima, Naren, and Sukumar for joining me today on this very important discussion around the role of India as a country and how India plays in driving innovations globally, right? So our hypothesis today is that there is significant amount of innovation that happens in the Indian ecosystem, be it the global R&D centers or the local Indian companies, right? So these innovation happen by design, and because it happens by design, and we could potentially emulate them across more organizations if we can learn how they do it, right? So since we have limited amount of time, I'm going to request our panelists to share their stories very briefly and narrate those hidden examples, which are very interesting for us in their respective areas, right? From which I believe that we all can learn and try and emulate, right? So we will stay away from a lot of theoretical discussions today and focus more on real examples, as I said before, and at the end, hopefully, some very very specific takeaways as well. Let me also set the context of today's discussion. I'm requesting again the panel to keep the following context in mind. One is, of course, the broader theme of this conference: anti-fragility. What a beautiful theme! What a beautiful theme! Last, 2 or 3 days, those of you watching on and off, I've been doing on and off. I'm sure that after listening to all the previous speakers, everyone knows what innovation in the context of anti-fragile organization really means, right? We will, of course, discuss the ability for the organizations to innovate better when faced with a black swan event. And this is a good segue to my next context point. In today's surreal world, we cannot discuss anything without looking at the impact of the biggest black swan of all, which is the COVID-19. So I'm requesting the panel to sort of keep that as an additional context in mind as well. So let's begin the discussion, right? I want to start with the only lady in our panel here. So Madhurima, you have an impeccable background. You worked for some very marquee financial services firm as an analyst, then went out and taught in a university, and now into tech with the NetApp, right? Now India, as you know, is known for its large talent pool of engineers and also to a great extent, of course, a thriving startup ecosystem. But what is not very well known widely, or should I say, commonly missed, is that the role of the global R&D centers, which we call GICs in this forum, and what all these centers are innovating for the whole world, not just for India, for the whole world. So after all your experiments with the financial sector. Now that you're part of it for the GIC, how is the work from India recognized on global platforms, and what did it take to achieve this? And I recall the very first time we spoke, you also said COVID has made our innovation agenda better, and I stuck in my mind. How so? How so? So let me start with you, Madhurima. Go ahead.
Thanks, Rajesh. So I've been lucky in being part of NetApp, right? NetApp has a global charter for innovation, which is same across sites. And basically, the innovation strategy that has been derived out of this charter is to drive, development of global products for the global market, right? And execution of such a strategy is basically targeted towards leveraging local talent and local ecosystems. So as you rightly said, right, in India we have a vast talent pool, which is being leveraged today in the organization I work for, to build for the globe. And it is also the largest R&D center outside of US. So if you ask how the recognition has come, it is evident in the number of patents. One of the example is the number of patents that has been filed out of this R&D center, over 500 patents, right? Of which about 275 plus has been actually granted, right? Now these patents have pertained to building the global products that NetApp sells. So I think that's live example, of how the recognition has come for the talent that is present in India, what India is building for the globe. So to your second question about how COVID has made it better. See, while as you said, rightly said, it's a black swan event, devastating in its impact, unpredictable. Uh, in true, I think, what we've been talking about in true Indian spirit, right? We've all risen up and in our daily lives, we've brought in innovation in small aspects, right? And similarly, what we have seen in our organization is NetApp, right? This has translated in some ways. People have, embraced this and said the time that we are saving in commuting, especially in Bangalore traffic, most of us know how notorious that is, that they have translated into, spending more time in thinking about how they can drive change. Having more time at hand has resulted in people being available. There's more discussions that is happening. We are having global leaders. In fact, for the program I run, we have global leaders coming in as executive mentors. So these are some small examples of how you've turned the situation to our advantage in some ways. Thanks.
Excellent, excellent. No, very well said, Madhurima, right? And I can relate to what you said to what we do in Ciena too, right? Not just the fact that Ciena R&D Center has got hundreds of patents filed, and this center has owned several products end to end, not just in software domain, but also in the hardware domain, right? Some of the packet products are designed end to end in the India lab, which I think is phenomenal. And as you said about NetApp, Ciena India R&D is the largest R&D outside of the US too. This also helps solving some of the India-specific problems when it comes to telecom. For instance, India actually has some very unique challenges when it comes to telecom. One example I can think of is the amount of fiber cuts in India is way above anywhere else in the world. I mean, India used to experience roughly about 30 cuts a day before the COVID lockdown, right? I mean, during the lockdown, incidentally, the fiber cuts actually slowed quite down a bit. But elsewhere, especially in a developed market, one would have as many cuts probably in an entire year, for example. So a solution for such issues, which are very unique to India, like a self-healing network, for instance, is being designed and implemented by these teams to support the Indian operators. So talking about India-specific challenges, right? Let me come to Naren. Look, Naren, you've had a very, very interesting background yourself, right? And all the way from CU Boulder, by the way, which is where my younger son graduated a couple of months ago. So go Bobs, yeah? I mean, and you got to explain to the audience as to what it means by go Bobs. Yeah, and then the financial services, of course. Then you went to NetApp. Now I see a pattern between you guys, right? So financial services, NetApp, whatever. Now finally you're in Flipkart. So before I get to the India challenge, let me ask you about the COVID-19. Was the whole pandemic situation a challenge or a big opportunity for Flipkart? And what were the specific innovations during COVID? Naren?
Great. Yeah. Rajesh, first of all, great to be here. Thanks for having me as part of this esteemed panel. See, I think COVID has definitely been a challenge when I think everybody was shut down. Our business was also shut down. But I think what you are seeing as an implication of COVID is digital transformation across the board, across multiple industries, is accelerating. And e-commerce as an industry, I think, is going to be a long-term beneficiary from it. Um, Once the lockdown is lifted, we're already seeing step jump increases in our business across all of the categories that we participate in. So we think this is a big inflection point where the adoption of e-commerce is not just limited to the metro tier one, higher income segments of the market anymore. It is tier two, tier three plus, and so you're going to see the next 200 million customers come on to e-commerce, and we think this is going to be a long-term benefit for us. Um, Obviously, a lot of innovation had to happen as we were sort of navigating these past 3 months. One of the first things that our CEO and as a company we prioritize is employee safety, right? I mean, and in fact, as a country, even our prime minister has said lives first, and then livelihood probably later, right? And so that's sort of the approach that we've also taken. Most of our innovations were around protecting not only employee safety but also in turn customer safety, right? So things like contactless payments, everything that we did in ensuring that the 60-70,000 delivery personnel that we have are operating with the right sort of guardrails in mind, right? Those were some of our initial sets of innovation. I talked about how the next 200 million customers are going to come on to e-commerce. Now, these people are not going to be native English speakers, right? So some of the innovations that we've introduced recently is about vernacular language support. So today the Flipkart app is available in 5 different languages. And one of my personal sort of things that I was really excited about was voice as a user interface, right? So today, if you go to the e-commerce app and you search for grocery, right, you can actually create a basket through voice. So, for example, you don't necessarily now need to know what is hing called in English, and then get the right spelling for it, and ensure that the right spelling is typed in. You can use voice to build your basket, which is a great technology for that particular category.
Excellent. Thank you, Naren. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now you talked about sort of reaching the broader population and farmers and so on and so forth. So there is this notion that companies like Flipkart and Amazons of the world aren't doing enough to help the farmers or manufacturers. Do you agree with that notion, first of all? And if you disagree, which I presume you do, can you give some examples, please? Specific examples.
Yeah. See, I think one of the things that I think is probably not understood about Flipkart's B2C business is our business is a marketplace. There are hundreds of thousands of sellers, and most of them are actually small and medium enterprises who are selling on our platform, right? And so I think first off, I think that is the kind of community that we are operating with, and the community that we are supporting, the community that we are enabling to be successful on the platform by offering them great technology and tools, by offering them credit instruments, by offering them business advice and so on, right? So that's the first thing, right, with the way the business operates today. And one of the things that you probably caught over the past week is Flipkart now has formally entered the B2B e-commerce space. We are now a wholesaler. And so a lot of the advantages that we are delivering to our end consumers, we are in a position to offer the same advantages to Kirana stores and other businesses as well. So the success of Kiranas is a core part of Flipkart's long-term plan here. And our success is going to depend on the success of small and medium enterprises and the Kirana stores of India.
Good. Okay. So that kind of helps us to add a little more context to what we read, I suppose. Yeah. Let me now turn to Sukumar. Yeah. So look, you had a significant experience in the engineering firms, Sukumar. And then, of course, into telecom and IT. But at least you stayed within the engineering realm, right? Unlike the Madhurima and Naren, who actually jumped ship midway and then sort of moved into technology from wherever they came from.
Right.
But seriously, help us understand what TechM did, which was specifically innovative during the pandemic. The US had a lot, but let's hear some good examples of what did he do during the pandemic, which was innovative.
Yeah, so thanks, Rajesh, for asking that question. I think when I look back, when the lockdown was announced, I think it was kind of so sudden, right? And then I remember we all scrambling for that, what do we do from tomorrow? On is it for a month or 2 months, or how long this is going to kind of affect us? So I think Mahindra Group as a is at the forefront of innovation and make in India. As a Mahindra Group company, Tech Mahindra also, we are a front runner among the innovation, right? So I think our CEO was invited for some of the initiatives which are happening at a national level. So I will give probably few real life example what I come across, and some of my teams have directly worked. So one such example is Arogya Setu app, right? So when we were asked our team to participate in this, and we were asked how can you help us to bring in something which is readily available, and we have been asked what is the timeline. So we asked what is the timeline to do this, and the answer was week, maybe max 2 weeks, because this is not the business as usual. And then we were actually our teams were put inside a team which was like operating from different cities, kind of headed by IAS officer whom we never seen. And I think that team, what we came up is that we looked at how can we provide, because in that pandemic time I think it was very 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 essential because lockdown was there. How can people access healthcare, right? So we had a already built platform for us. The challenge was how do we integrate that with Arogya Setu app. and the time we had was in days. So our team could actually do the integration, everything completed, up and running, and we completed around 15,000 patient consultation on that app, right? So that was one thing I think we ourselves felt very proud, and we were not aware that we can possibly work at that kind of a speed, especially working with government, right? So they were faster than us. The second example was, I think all of us probably could have, if you were in a management or if you were, probably from the IT support, you're trying to go to office during the lockdown. There are lots of stories that how police was stopping people, and it was very difficult to go there, right? So especially for Delhi, we work with Delhi police, and it's not a technologically marvelous thing, right? But what matters in my language, the innovation is something can solve the real life problem. So we came up with the e-pass for Delhi police by Tech Mahindra. App was built within 48 hours, and so far we have issued 20,000 plus passes. So that is something again, use of technology to solve the real life problem. The third one is close to my heart, which is, we have been working with many cities in India on smart city platform, right? So smart city is essentially, there will be ICCC integrated command control center, and, you are typically monitoring the city for the crime or the electricity or what's going on, right? And some of them are built, some of them are half built, and suddenly this hit, right? And then, couple of commissioners, these IS officers, they called us and told me that, the specific case in Kanpur and PCMC, the commissioner called me and said that, hey, look, Sukumar, we want to use this to convert into COVID tracking center. Can you guys do it? And rather, it's not can you guys do it, just do it. And then, can you do it in a week's time? And I'm so happy and delighted that, we could actually convert the ICCC, work with the vendors, got the right technology developed and integrated the center so that the authorities can track the COVID patients and also kind of talk to the people and develop all the support required support. So apart from this, I think there are many examples. In last few months have come up. With the scarcity of time, I'll not go through all of them. But I would say that last 2-3 months have been very eventful. There are it has actually made us to stretch our limits and do the things in a very different way, and especially the speed.
Excellent.
Which
Thank
we
you. Thank you, Suku. I think that's been just a phenomenal amount of work. And I'm also hearing that you guys are really doing a great job broadly, right, during these tough times, especially. So please do convey our thanks to my dear friend CP. I must assume that this is both the leadership as well as the innovation that is at work here, right? Now,
Absolutely.
something you told me reminded me of what I read in the newspapers a couple of days ago. And unfortunately, I need to go back to Naren one more time. This is the potential of a new hyper-local service by Flipkart. Now, my question to Naren is that where did this come from, and is that a local innovation? What prompted that? Of course, other than Amazon's quick service offering, and then you got to have a competitive positioning. But was this an innovation thought through? Is it something which you guys did it in-house?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is that was probably the most recent announcement that we made. It's called Flipkart Quick. So for a portfolio of essential products, you will be able to place the order and get the delivery in 90 minutes. Now, a lot of the innovation was accelerated as a result of COVID, right? So now people, particularly for their essentials, they want to make sure that they get it as quickly as possible. We also felt that this was one way we can also more tightly partner with local stores, right? So today the Flipkart Quick solution is done through our own fulfillment centers, the so-called dark stores. But the extension of this will be where we will be able to deliver from nearby modern trade stores and kirana stores as well, right? And so that is that is an innovation that we think is in line with the broader strategic agenda that we had. But the COVID related emphasis on essentials has definitely accelerated time to market.
Thank you, Naren. Wishing you and the Flipkart, of course, all the very best in launching this and bringing these and a lot more innovation to the marketplace, right? Talking about local innovations, Madhurima, you mentioned in our discussion earlier some kind of an external facing innovation. So can you share a couple of real life examples again, and also tell us if this whole work from home has it made the innovation a bit more harder? I'm asking this because you now have less team discussions. You don't sit around the table. You don't go to the coffee cooler and have the informal conversations that you had before. There's no whiteboarding, less access to your labs, whatever it is, right? So with this context, let me tell me something about your external facing innovation as well as this whole impediment because of work from home. Go ahead, Madhurima.
Yeah. So, I and most of us, I think, accept this fact that not everything in life can be achieved by, an individual or an organization alone, and that's where partnerships come in, right? So NetApp also takes an external view to, innovations, what we call is an outside in. And under this, we established the NetApp Accelerator program. So we've all been, just talking about how necessity has accelerated the need for innovation. And that's what we want to do here. So we partner with external startups, right? We don't invest in them. So they are truly, independent entities. We partner with them. And, with them, we work on areas which are adjacent to NetApp. We help them, support them with technical mentorship, business mentorship, access to whatever infrastructure they need. And in turn, we hope to find startups that we can partner with who are solving real problems for the customers, right? And present that to the ecosystem. So it's a lot about evolving the ecosystem that is there. For example, we partnered with one startup to create while a technical term is a white paper, it's actually a real life reference guide for how enterprises can leverage AI to drive efficiency. So those are some examples that have come out of this thing. In fact, we have something called an advanced technology group, our largest team outside of US based here in our India center, and they do very long-term research, focus on things that are more futuristic in nature. And they don't do that just by themselves, but they partner with universities, right, like IITs, IISC, other such institutions across India, as well as around the world. So those are some ways where we drive, outside in innovation, partner with the folks outside.
Excellent.
Coming to your question about work from home having made innovation difficult. So I will differ from you, right? We still have coffee breaks. We have those water cooler moments. It's just that it's on Zoom, right? Like we are interacting with this, fabulous audience here live, right? Doesn't stop us from being able to share our thoughts, doesn't stop us from thinking of new ideas. And I think that's what we are seeing in our daily lives, right? Our employees have these. So NetApp, just in case, for those of you who don't know, we were famous for something called a beer bash on Friday. People would just get together over beer, free beer sponsored by company. We do that. We have virtual happy hours now. So truly, right? And not to say it's a cliche, but change is one of the constants in our lives now, right? It's difficult at the beginning, but I think now that we are almost 4 months into this work from home, uh, with no short-term end to this, I think people have adapted, right? And as we've all been talking about, beyond resilience, anti-fragility, that's what people are displaying. So, I would say that that's happening. It's taken a different form. Yes, there might have been some challenges in the initial stages, people were adjusting. But, as I said again, other venues have opened up. A lot of workforce has moved back home to their native towns. And with the support of the family around, they have more, don't kill me for this, more leisure time. So they can, innovate. And you need that. You need that creativity to come in. So
I like your
it's not
positive.
difficult, it's different.
I agree. I like your positive attitude towards this. But that certainly is going to help you get through some of these issues, which anyway comes with that, right? Now we have got lots of questions from audience, so I'm going to probably take one audience question before I come back with some of the other questions that I had for all of you. The audience question, and I probably ask Suku if you could give it a shot, right? This basically it comes from audience saying, we talk about innovative ideas. Should we focus more on innovation or outcome? Sukumar.
I think clearly my personal opinion is outcome, because what we have seen in last 3 months probably have taught us what probably we have not seen in our lifetime, right? So if the challenge is thrown at us, I think we will figure out what is the solution for it, right? And then I think that's the human tendency. So like I was giving the example, giving a pass, it's not about the great technology doing, but I think when we heard about people coming and telling, "Hey, look, we were going to the office, we were stopped, we were questioned, and we were sent back," and it felt so bad that can't we do something about it? And the solution could be, we don't have to be technologically marvelous solution, but solution something which is real and can solve the problem. So I would go for solving the problem, then and that's when the innovation will come out. That's
Yeah,
my take on this.
very good answer, Sukumar. There, yeah, absolutely. I have one more question from the audience. This is for Naren. How do you think about exploring rural markets as COVID is actually stepping in there?
Yeah, see, I think so largely rural markets have been protected. I think if you look at most of the outbreak, right, they've been concentrated in the dense urban regions, and part of what we are seeing, when analysts, right, clearly the GDP this year is impacted, but you see most of the analysts projecting a GDP bounce back to 6 to 7% next year, and that is largely based on the strength of the rural markets. Right, so one of the unique things about India is roughly 50% of the consumption for us comes from rural markets, and with a strong monsoon and those markets being largely isolated, right, I think the belief is they will carry us forward as we go into the recovery pieces. See, for Flipkart, we are our customer base today is also largely coming from tier 2 plus. While it causes a challenge for us when lockdowns happen ward by ward or county by county, but the technology is in place for us to be able to navigate around it, right? I don't think what you are seeing is wholesale lockdown in rural areas. See, locking down Bangalore as a city probably has a larger impact than specific pockets in rural areas getting locked down. So I think generally speaking, I think we feel better. We feel, at least from our perspective, the worst is behind us. Right? I think when the entire country was shut down, particularly large cities, that was probably the highest impact for us.
Are you sure, Naren? I mean, are you sure everything is behind us? I'm seeing in the newspaper every day there are 50,000 cases coming up new. Are you sure it's over?
Yeah, I think see, like anything, right? When you're faced with something for the very first time, and you're trying to invent things as you go along, the initial phase is probably the hardest. Now we've sort of experienced this. The government has had experience, dealing with it. Local governments have had experiences dealing with it, right? And so there's a like a database of learning that we now have. And so even if there is a sort of another outbreak down the line, as some of them are predicting, I think there are enough systems now in place for us to be able to navigate around it. We're talking about innovation, and here are 3 companies that are innovating. There are thousands of companies like ours who are innovating as well to get us around this.
I agree. All
So
right.
generally speaking, I'm an optimist, so I will play that optimist card here.
Look, I got a panel. Everybody is an optimist. Madhurima seemed to be very optimistic in everything that she was saying. And, Sukumar is saying that he's very optimistic about everything. So that's great. That's great news for all of us. Talking about optimism, I think, I remember again, one of our earlier discussion, one of you mentioned saying that necessity is mother of all invention, right? And it still holds water even though the saying is quite old. I also want to add that necessity has also pushed a lot of things to be done faster, for example, right? So most enterprises were already on the journey of, for example, becoming digital. But what this COVID has really done is to expedite that journey a lot more, right? So companies today are becoming a lot more digital and far sooner than actually earlier planned, right? So then I come to one of the audience questions related to that. And this will, I know, I'll ask Madhurima to see if she can give it a shot. This is saying that, look, while India has produced good engineering talent to work in R&D centers across the globe, why are there no products being created out of India, like the likes of Microsoft or Google or whoever? What do you think, Madhurima?
I would actually say, the statement that no products are being created out of of India, I would take a different view at it. See, it is the Indian engineers who are creating this, not to talk about management names, like there's a lot of WhatsApp jokes going around that, if we have to invite the global CEOs, it has to be with samosa and jalebi. But the fact is, probably earlier there were not enough product companies that started in India, which is why we see that, they started in other geographies and Indians are contributing to that. Having said that, the growth in GICs that we are seeing today, right? It's all employing the local talent, which is building global products. So probably it's more of a branding issue rather than a contribution issue. And while we are talking about organizations, I think just to expand on the branding part, this is the same thing we see even in the startup ecosystem, right? There are so many startups which have grown in India, have India development teams here, but when you ask people, people don't recognize them as Indian startups, right? So that's something we need to work on. Especially having lived in the West, I've seen, how they have mastered this art of branding things right, getting the optics right. So probably, I don't know if that answers your question, but in my mind, I think global products are being developed by Indians in India. It's just that they are probably being packaged and marketed from the headquarters, which in most cases do lie out of India.
Well, yes, you did answer, but you didn't quite answer that. But that's okay, right? I mean, this is a debate which goes on in this industry for too long. But we will leave it at that, because that's not something we are running on short of time. I'm going to ask my last question back to Sukumar, right? Look, Suku, we have seen several changes because of this pandemic, right? But one significant change is that manufacturing comes back closer home, right? I mean, wherever you're manufacturing, bring it back home. Supply chains will tend to be more resilient rather than being optimal, if you may. And of course, whenever we do all of this, nationalism will be something the businesses will have to deal with, right? And that's a big issue. Now, with all of this, how do you see global innovation for a company like TechM? How do you see the global innovation ecosystem shaping up in the future? Very briefly, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so great question, Rajesh, right? So we work with variety of companies from automotive to aerospace to industrial machinery. And today, I also work with a lot of captives like yourself, around India. So when I asked the question to many of the companies in India, especially the GICs, if we shut down, let's say, some captive in India, what will happen to the headquarters? And many of them say that look, there is going to be a problem, we will be in a problem. So from the supply chain I think the sentiments are real. Many of the countries will come up with certain legislation, the things which they want to keep in the country, the manufacturing especially. But my sense is that the global innovation today, if you look at any product, I mean, we are working on a vehicle which is going to be sold under the European brand, but which is going to be designed by Tech Mahindra, manufactured by all the Indian companies. Some of the components will come from the Europe, and which will be sold to the Indian consumers. So it is the supply chain today is so diverse and distributed. I think even if the sentiments are there, this will continue. That's my sense. You cannot just shut and say that the supply will start from tomorrow, because developing the manufacturing supply chains possibly will take 5-10 years, right? It's not going to switch on and switch off. And especially from the innovation perspective, I think India is so closely knitted into the global companies. I think that will continue. I don't see that significantly it is changing. Of course, the travel is stopped. People cannot sit in a plane and go in the headquarter. Will not able to see their products, and that is going to affect in a shorter run. But in a longer run, and we'll figure out a way for that, right? We're not stopped anything. But in my opinion, I think I'm very optimistic that this is a journey which is non-stoppable.
There you go. There you go. I mean, you guys are all being this eternal optimist here. But look, guys, we had a great discussion, but we ran out of time, right? So I just want to summarize. So what we heard today was some solid perspective from all the three panelists here, which is turning out to be, the hypothesis we started with is turning out to be true, right? There is no doubt that we have significant innovation happening in the global innovation centers, as well as the local organizations such as Flipkart or TechM in India. So we had several examples of that. We also heard that the most progressive organization make innovation as part of their organization culture and strategy, right? So we also heard about creating a culture where experimentation is rewarded, right? So with those closing thoughts, I want to thank all of you for patiently listening to us from the audience side, and also for our wonderful panelists, right? Madhurima, Naren, Suku, thank you for a very, very interesting conversation. And that concludes the session. So over to Gautam. Thank you.